Hi guys, I'm Jess and it is now December, Christmas is on the way, New Year's is coming, and because I'm on delay, I'm now going to be telling you about the books that I read back in October. I read 6 really good books in October, which is a vast improvement on the amount of books I've been reading in the past couple of months. Since starting a new job, my reading has just gone downhill lots. So the first book that I read was Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody, and this was a book that was circulating Twitter endlessly, especially on my feed. It was just there again and again and again. And I picked this copy up at Youk. It was a little bit early out in the UK. The US already had it out in their lovely hardback, but for the UK I had this a little bit early, and I didn't probably start reading it until it had been officially released in the shops as well, so I wasted my time a little bit to get round to this. So Daughter of the Burning City is based in this moving carnival city that looks like it's constantly burning, and our main character is this woman girl named Serena, which is a really beautiful name which I haven't seen in very many books, and I like the way that it's spelt in here as well. Hope I've got it pronounced right and it's not a slightly different pronunciation to the normal. But Serena is blind. She's got no eyes. Her face is just kind of a blank across here, and she is able to create kind of visions and projections for everybody else to see, and I think she's able to see those as well. She knows exactly what she's doing, which is really incredible. She's able to see those as she makes them. And she has also created people that are her family, and she created them when they were very young. They take a lot of effort to make, and they have their own feelings, emotions and expressions, and she's able to make them disappear if she really wants to. She pulls them inside like a trunk box if she needs to put them away for safety or whatever. And lots of things start happening in the outside world. This city is constantly kind of under threat from people higher up in the mountains and people who consider Serena and her friends to be freaks. They are part of a freak show. And then, of course, people start dying and threats start being made, and people very close to Serena start dying, and she's trying to work out who is doing the murdering and who is threatening them and how it is that the people that are dying are actually able to die. So this was really good. I didn't see the twist that came at the end. I didn't guess who it was, which is great because usually you're able to tell within 30-40 pages of the book who's done what by the end. And though Caraval came out much earlier this year, I did feel like I was reminiscing Caraval a bit just because it's the kind of carnival theme, but that is where the similarities end. It is very different. I feel like it's a bit more grown up, and the themes and events that happen are quite mature, and I really liked the way that it was done. I felt like it went a little bit slowly for me at the beginning. I really had to chew through it, but when it got to the end, I just snapped up all the way through the end of it. So that is a thorough recommendation for anybody who enjoyed Caraval. So the second book that I read in October, I am thoroughly excited about. It's really going to be, I think, one of the next big things, and I'm really annoyed that I missed out on the November Fairy Loot box because they had a special cover edition on it. But I have an ARC copy, which is also lovely. It's The Last Namzire by Kristen Ciccarelli. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the author's last name. This is the ARC copy that I won at Youk, and this is the full edition finished copy that I got from Goldsboro, and as you can see it's got gold spattering across the top, which with the Fairy Loot edition was silver. So I've got 2 copies. I've got a finished and an ARC, and I think I'm going to keep a hold of this ARC because it's lovely. I really like the cover. But this is the beginning of the Iskari. I think it's going to be a trilogy, and I can see it being big. It has got dragons, it has got a kick-ass female warrior, it has got depth, and it's got, in that depth is religion, slavery, history, and it can be adapted so much in the future of these books, and I'm very excited. You don't get that depth in the beginning of a series very often. It's kind of, you know, you can see that it's going to be adapting and growing each time, and I'm very excited to see how it's done. We follow a young girl warrior named Asher, who has got terrible dragon burn scars down the side of her body, and the people resent her for this because dragon fire is only created when you tell the old stories, and it is forbidden to tell the old stories by Asher's father, who rules the kingdom. And so a huge fire that happened early on in her childhood when she got these scars, the people view her to blame because she told the old stories, which is against the law, and they can't understand why she wasn't executed for it. Of course, she's, you know, kind of the princess, or as you call it. So she's not killed, but she is betrothed to a soldier who is kind of captain of the guard and everything now, and he is very, very controlling. His name is Jarek, and he's a bit of a creep, and he's very, very real. The presence of him is kind of terrifying in this book. It's not really scary, but it's just very real. You can totally understand where her terror comes from with him and how she wants to get out of the marriage, and it's very detailed in all things that he does. For example, the wedding dress, which you'd see if you read in this, it's like the point that she makes over the wedding dress and how he's had it designed is very, very meticulous and well done in here, and I hope it was kept in the full copy because I haven't scanned through it. But I would highly recommend you people jump onto the bandwagon. Fairy Luke can see what's going on here, you know, get on this book. It is gonna be great because, you know, I mentioned that there's dragons, right? A third book that I read is The Treatment by C.L. Taylor, and this book is now out in shops. This is another arc that I got at Yalc, and I believe it came out in November. It should be out now. I think it was autumn release, so it's definitely out there. And in this book, we follow a young girl named Drew, whose brother has been taken to this facility run by scientists and the government, where they are attempting to correct bad behaviour and make people into modern model citizens. And she meets one of these people that have come out of the facility after the brainwashing has kind of all happened, and they are just blank, dead, compared to what they were before they went in, and she doesn't want that to happen to her brother, so she takes rather large steps in going to get him back, because her mum doesn't believe her, and her stepdad she believes is part of the reason he's in there, and then her dad has not been seen for years, so she's got no one who can help her but herself to go and get her brother out. And this was really high tension in this book. It's very low-key sci-fi by my standards for what, because you've got medication and brainwashing in there, so there is a sci-fi element, but it's very real and relevant in today's society. I think it was really, really good. A great YA debut. C.L. Taylor really knows what she's doing. She's written adult books before, so I don't think I had a point in this book where I went, that's for a younger audience than what I wanted to read. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well executed. So the fourth book that I read this month was Alone by Sin Balog, Balog, I think I've got that right. Again, I can't find a pronunciation guide. This was an arc from Yalc again, and this came out in November, so it's out on the shop floor, I think, if there hasn't been a reason to push it back, I hope. I read this in a day, which is really, really rare for me. It's not an awfully thick book, but it's psychological thriller / horror. It's the kind of movie that you would watch like that. I would really enjoy it, but because the tension was so high and it was like you were watching a movie, you were just constantly reading and reading and reading because you wanted to finish and find out what happened next. So the book follows a girl named Seda, S-E-D-A. I'm not completely sure how you would pronounce it, but her mum inherits this old mansion that used to be hosting horror events kind of thing. It's like a horror mystery house, and she wants to do it up, and so she brings her family, which is Seda, and then her two sets of twin brothers and sisters, which is really funny because one of them starts with an A and one of them starts with a Z, and there's really just quite a quirky way of doing a family. And the little siblings absolutely love this house. They think it's a wondrous place, lots of fun adventures to have in there. But Seda, of course, is older and she has to leave all of her friends. She doesn't have access to kind of the internet as much in the mountains because this is way up in freezing cold mountains, far away from where she was. So she doesn't have her friends to talk to anymore. She's very much on her own. And then this group of teenagers arrives and they're about to go skiing at the top of a mountain, and they decide to go past kind of their house, the track that's near their house, which is not the best way to do it, and they end up crashing. Their car goes out. And for some reason I can't quite explain, so it doesn't tell them that they can come into the house. She lets them into a kind of barn to keep warm until they can get help. Her mum finds out and then gets them all in and decides that she wants to host a horror experience for them, for the kids and her, and I think it was because it was Seda's birthday, if I remember correctly, that she wants to do it. And things start to unfold and they're not sure what's real and what's not, and the things that happen are horror things that happen, and it is a horror book, and it is great because I didn't see the twist that came, but what happened at the very end, the little action that Seda did at the very end, is just fantastic. It's just that little bit of spiteful action that was just like, I like this character. She may have been a bit backwards or slow with the things that she came up with in the beginning, but now that final little action of spite, I really like her. I really enjoyed this. If you want a short, very concentrated dive into horror for a little while over the Christmas period, I would recommend this. It was a really, really good book. The fifth book that I read in October was Here We Are Now by Jasmine Warger. Again, I got this at Yauk. I got this off the Chapter 5 stall for doing air guitar, which was fantastic. I read this, just shortly before it came out. This came out in November, so again it is out now. And this is a bit more of a contemporary read, which means that I would never normally read it. I don't do contemporary. I don't do contemporary dance. I don't do contemporary literature. It's just I like the escapism of fantasy and sci-fi. And horror as well. So this isn't the typical thing that I would read, but I did think it was very, very sweet. So we follow a young girl named Talia who has never met her father, but she's done research and suspects that she knows that it is the superstar named Julian. And so she writes to him in her young childhood and writes letters to him and doesn't think they ever get through, and she's completely wrong. But one day he turns up on her doorstep, and her mother is well out of town. She's across the sea. She's like, this is based in America, and she's in Paris. I think she was doing some kind of art thing. And Julian asks her to come to the other end of the country with him so that she can meet her grandfather, who is dying, and who Julian hasn't been to see in a while because he thinks that his father disapproved of the trade that he took, which is singing. And so Talia says yes to go with him. She goes to meet her family, and she learns a lot about her father and her mother and how things pursued and how she ended up not knowing her father and all the sorts of things that happened. So she learns a lot, and it's lovely self-discovery and family bonding kind of book. As I say, not the kind of thing that I usually read, and I'm probably not describing it perfectly because it's not the kind of thing that I usually read and get into, but I did think it was really, really sweet. Again, quite a short read. I feel like maybe the beginning was a little long, but I think the pacing was quite sturdy throughout. But her attitude was a little bit grating, but I think it was actually perfectly normal and correct in the situation that she was in. You would be bitter in this situation, and as much as it kind of grates on me when that does happen, it was actually very, very right for the situation. So I think it was, again, executed really well. All the emotions were about right. Of course, you would never know unless you're in this situation, but again, a really nice, as I said, sweet book. Now, what's exciting about the last book that I read is that I've got a really super early arc of it, and I know that it's also coming up in one of the book box subscriptions that I subscribe to now because I'm fed up of missing out on them. And it's also coming out early there, but of course there will be a signed, and it will be a lovely full copy with all of the lovely artwork that I keep seeing. And it's Everless by Sarah Holland. And as you can see, there is absolutely no artwork on this other than a lovely snake on the Everless. It's literally just white, kind of all around with a little bit of red. And I've seen the beginning artwork for the final copy that is this lovely hourglass with a little castle mansion at the bottom of it, and it's gorgeous, and I can't wait to see which kind of version we get in the UK for it, because I'm very, very excited. This was good fantasy. Currency is time, and you can withdraw time from your blood in this. You can give away a day or month, years of your life, and get it created into this coin that you then pay for things, and then you can, if you are being paid by that, you can drink it and gain that time back, kind of thing. We follow Jules, who used to live at Everlis with her father. He was the blacksmith, and there was an incident that meant they had to leave because they were in danger of the Lord's son possibly taking action to kill them, to keep them quiet. And so the Lord's son, Liam, is someone that Jules has learnt she needs to avoid, even though she loves his younger brother, Rowan. So they become very, very poor, and she's struggling to make a living. But it's been years since she was at Everlis, so she decides that she's going to go back there to work to earn some keep for her father so that he stops giving away his time. And, of course, going back there, people recognise her, Liam recognises her, Rowan recognises her to the end, and Rowan is getting married to the princess. The queen is, I think, hundreds of years old, and has adopted children throughout her time, and her latest adopted child, who is looking like she's actually going to inherit the throne, is going to marry Rowan. And of course Jules is quite upset, but she's just there to earn money for her father. And then things start to happen. Her father turns up there, and he is not who she thinks he is, and Liam is not who she thinks he is. He keeps getting her out of trouble. Rowan is not who she thought he was. Things just unfold, and whilst I perhaps thought it was a little bit slow in the middle, the beginning and end all happen quite quickly. So I found that when the magic that did happen, because it's not it's interesting kind of magic that happens in this book because it's to do with time, I felt like I didn't quite understand what was happening sometimes. I felt like it needed a little bit more explaining, and I think when in future books it happens, I'll understand a bit more, because the process of how it happened, or how she felt she could make it happen, I didn't quite understand how it was working. But that just comes with a type of magic that's not the usual that I've seen in like Throne of Glass or something, where they have utter control of it. She doesn't know, she's not sure, she has no idea that she has these powers, kind of thing, and it all unfolds, and other people have these powers, and it's just, it all comes in at the end. So there's a slower beginning and middle, and then a lot of information at the end to try and absorb. But the ideas and themes and possibility for the future behind this book are great, and I think this is a book that lots of people are going to enjoy. Lots of people are going to be reading the rest of the series as it comes out. This book isn't released until January. Lots of people are going to be waiting for it, and I'm excited for other people to read it to see what they have to say, because as much as I enjoyed it just being a fantasy book, there are other books that are very, very similar in the way that it just is set in that world. For example, it reminded me a little bit of Ever the Hunted, which is interesting. But the concept of time being the currency isn't completely unique, but it's not something that I've seen in young adult as much as anywhere, like in films and stuff. So it's going to be I think this is going to be a bit of an explosive series. A lot of people are going to read it, because it's been hyped up a lot already, which is great for the month before it comes out. So I'm very excited to see what other people have got, and I'm excited to get a finished copy of this, I hope, in some point soon, because obviously this copy is very, very plain at the moment. So I read a couple of books that definitely weren't my kind of genre in October, and I hope it encourages some of you to pick up books that will be outside of your comfort zone too. I hope that The Last Namzara gets the recognition it deserves, because that was my top book of the month for definite. And it is out now, and I've not seen a vast amount of people reading it, but it has now come out in the Fairy Loot November box, and I hope that encourages a lot of people to pick it up, because that is a great promotion for this book, and it is, I really hope that it gets to and reaches a lot of people. I'm so excited I can't even talk about it. That was my top book of the month, most definitely. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you guys do too. I hope you maybe get encouraged to pick up some of the other books that I've talked about. I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.